Right. We're going to get started today. Thank you all for coming to Peers and Clinicians Together PACT. Today we have a very special guest that we will introduce. And today's topic is Leadership is Treatment. And just to put out our disclaimer, just want you to know that today's topics and views do not reflect our federal funder, SAMHSA. And just in case we have some security issues on this line, we will stop the Zoom and send you a new Zoom. Good morning, good afternoon. If you can put in your name, your role, and where you're calling in from. Welcome. All right, so thank you again for attending the National Training Technical Assistance Center for Child, Youth, and Family Mental Health, NTTAC for short. We are so excited to have you. This are our partners who make up the Technical Assistance Center. And so what do we do at NTTAC? Our vision and services are that all children, youth, and families living with and impacted by mental health challenges will have access to the resources and opportunities they need to thrive in a comprehensive and equitable system of care. So we do offerings such as PACT, we have toolkits, individual consultation, podcasts, and if you need individual technical assistance, we do provide free TATU. And so visit our website and you can sign up for our newsletter, and we'll share that when we end the session as well. Awesome. So again, after the session, you will get a follow-up email. Please let us know if you have any questions, and you can definitely get a copy of this recording. And here we do have continuing education hours. So if you would like these, please let us know, and these are no cost to you. All right, so again, welcome to today's session. I'm super excited. It's one area that I'm really passionate about. Leadership is treatment. So hello, my name is Evelyn Clark. I am the PACT lead on NTTAC, and I'm also a change consultant with Change Matrix, who is a partner on the center. I am the creator of this series of this topic today, and super excited to introduce our special guest. All right, so I will pass it over to Dr. Lewis Guiden Jr., and he will introduce himself, and then just a few minutes after, we're going to be hearing from him today.
Well, good morning to some of you. Good afternoon to some of you. It's a pleasure to be here. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Evelyn, for this opportunity that you created for me today. Evelyn and I, man, we've known each other. How long, Evelyn, have we known each other?
I think since 2012.
2012, yes, 2012. A little bit about me. I'm from Shreveport, Louisiana. Moved to the Northwest around 1993. And I remember when I moved to Seattle, even today's conversation was, when I left the South, I left with a lot of trauma, a lot of mental health issues, disorders. I was a child that was abused in the home, physically, mentally, emotionally. I was later, when I moved to Seattle, I was injured. 500 pounds fell on me, hit me in the head, and I had a traumatic brain injury. So once I got to Seattle, I lost memory, went through a lot of depression, anxiety. I had about 16 surgeries on my left ankle. So from 93 till about 2000, I experienced a lot of chronic pain. The reason why I give you that background is because the work that I started was from my own story, things that I went through, suffering through pain and trauma. So today's conversation is very well fit because I believe that it is about how we use our leadership and our influence. So I'm excited to get started, and I'll pass it back over to Evelyn.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here. We're excited to hear from you. So we're going to have an opening question, and I would love for maybe a couple of you to come off mute if you would like. And then also please put in the chat as well what your answer is to this question. We just want to get you going. I know it's Friday, and we thank you for being here today. All right, so please share, and again, please feel free to raise your virtual hand, come off mute, put it in the chat. But what is one thing you hope to gain from today's session? So one thing you hope to gain today. Communication skills, awesome. Perspective, love it. How to create leadership opportunities for your patients, I love that. My first time here, hoping to just learn more about this group does, purpose plans. Ooh, awesome, welcome. Collaborations, nice. Leadership, communication, and wellness. I love it. Very similar reasons for being here today. Awesome. Well, you keep them coming. We hope to address these. And if we do not, we are here for you after the session. Well, after today's session, we'll put our information in the chat box for you and you can reach out to us. Awesome. Okay, so why is leadership important? We're going to watch this quick news clip, and these are young men who I had worked with here in Washington State. They're all not there anymore, but this leadership meeting took place in Washington State at a youth prison, and I had worked with young people to create committees, councils, and also help them get connected to bill legislation. So these young men helped pass a bill, and all of them unfortunately had to go on to adult prison. But it just goes to show why leadership is important for the young people that we serve.
Blazer, a t-shirt for underneath, belt, and some shoes.
When you wear the same thing every day,
a t-shirt, pants, and some sneakers.
It's fun to get dressed up for a rare field trip.
So like this? Other way. Other way.
These young men are all serving time at Green Hill School, the state's maximum security facility for those convicted under the age of 21.
I feel freedom in this. I could taste freedom in this.
These offenders help change that law so they and others can stay at juvenile facilities until 25.
About to get certified in welding, about to obtain my high school diploma.
Edgar Calixto was a driver in a deadly drive-by gang shooting when he was 16. He'll be locked up until 28. He was not looking forward to going to adult prison at 21.
It's a lot more hectic, more fights, riots. It's more political, race-wise. A lot of gangs and stuff like that,
They'll give them the resources that they need for proper rehabilitation.
19-year-old Joe Huntley is about to get his high school diploma at Green Hill. He'll be out before he's 21, but fought to get this law passed to ensure kids with longer sentences will get more help at a place like this.
Science has backed it up, saying that our brain is not fully developed until the age of 25.
This field trip takes the offenders to the Capitol.
Its goal is to reduce recidivism by having these youth receive services that are more appropriate for their age.
The bill they helped get passed is being signed.
I want to thank some of the young people behind me whose leadership has helped us to get us to this point.
For Joe Huntley, getting involved in politics to help others may have been his favorite lesson learned while being locked up.
This kind of work gave me a lot of experience into something that I'd probably like to continue doing when I get out.
Okay, I look forward to when you guys are governor, so.
Drew Mickelson, King 5 News.
Pay later option available.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. It always makes me emotional watching that. These young men are such leaders. And like I said, these young men, it did not benefit them, but they wanted to make things better for the youth coming behind them. Please let us know your thoughts. Today, we're going to just be diving into why it's important. There will be another series that I am currently creating around how to build these committees and councils and youth voice efforts within different systems, as well as institutions. So thank you again for watching that. And I am so excited because now we're going to hear from Dr. Lewis Guiden Jr., and he's going to walk us through leadership and influence. And then we will have time at the end for questions. All right.
Thank you, Thank you. Yeah, Evelyn, every time I look at that video, it reminds me of the time I spent up at Green Hill with most of those young men. And one of the things I've learned is even today's conversation is about leadership and influence. And I remember the first time I went to Green Hill, I started talking about entrepreneurship, and I actually created an entrepreneurship class. And they said, "Why do you want to teach entrepreneurship?" I said, "Because these young men have influence. They have a brand. I just want to help recreate who they are, because a lot of times, even in treatment, I was kind of tired of people talking about my past, my mother, my father, the communities I grew up in, the gang violence, all those different things. And really what I was really looking for was how to shape my leadership. And that became my focus. And even when Evelyn talked about the ideal of using our influence as treatment, I smiled because being there for those 12 years actually created a lot of the work that I do today. So I want to go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. I always like to start with a quote. You can't build an adaptable organization without adaptable people. And individuals change only when they have to or when they want to. Change is hard. And really, for me, having to change my mindsets, having to change my views, having to change my perspectives was hard. And I believe no matter where we sit, right, either we sit in the organization or we sit as an individual, it's really about change. And it's really how do we become agents of change to really influence others around us. Next slide, please. So I call this the evolutionary of leadership, right? And the definition that I want to kind of start with is everyone has leadership potential within them. But understanding these concepts will help you maximize your leadership ability. Everyone has leadership potential in them. It's important to understand the very why the different leadership styles can be effective. There are many different leadership styles. And one of the important things is to understand your own leadership style and what are the techniques that will work in every situation. Not every technique works in every situation, but truly understanding your leadership style, and then also what are the personalities that you're dealing with. What is your leadership style and what is the different personalities you're dealing with? Even to understand your own personality. I like to use animals as personality. There's the lion, there's the monkey, there's the Saint Bernard, and there's the dolphin, right? All of them basically shares or shows us the different personality styles. So understanding what your personality is and the personality of the client or the individual working with is key. And then what is the different leadership styles? Situational leadership talks about 4 leadership styles. Now, these leadership styles can change based on the task. One is coaching. Sometimes we have to get into a style of coaching. Sometimes we have to get into directing. Sometimes there's supporting, and sometimes there's delegating. Now, for most of us, we probably would delegate it leadership quickly, and we didn't get coaching or supporting or even direction. So understanding the situational leaderships and based on each task is going to be key. Next slide, please. Now let's define leadership. And I bold these words because I really want us to focus on the words. And it says the capacity to influence, the capacity to influence, and to align others towards a common goal, motivating and committing them to action and making them responsible for their performance. It's really about the capacity in ourselves is where we start. One of my, I would say, themes, even in my leadership, is we build the capacity and the competence for 21st century leaders. As a leader, when I stepped into leadership, it was really the capacity that I had to build. So really understanding our capacity. And once we have a capacity, now we can use that to influence, right? Influence is basically how we are able to pretty much impact others around us and align others. How do we really align others towards a common goal that's motivating and committing them to action and making them responsible for their performance? When we're using our influence, it's really about helping others to shape and others to basically take on the leadership role. So it's really about how do we use our influence in defining leadership. Next slide, please. So I want to talk about three leadership principles, and I'm going to talk about three theories. And the first one is the great man theory. This was inspired by stories of great men and women who did great things in their lives. Alexander the Great conquered the known world. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. Harriet Tubman saved hundreds from slavery and Underground Railroad. Mother Teresa aided and comforted thousands who were abandoned by society. These people did great things because they were simply great people determined by fate and fulfilling their destiny. The next one is the trait leadership. Now we have to look at our traits of leadership. If you have the ability to lead, you were born with it. With no way of learning those skills, this means that under any circumstance, anyone can rise to leadership, to the role, and be successful if you know how to use that ability properly to address the situation at hand. It goes back to the first slide. We all are leaders within, but we also have to know the traits that we carry. There are people that were born leaders, and there are people that go to school to become leaders. And that's two different traits of how we look at the trait theory. The last one is transformational leader. It's a process where leaders interact with their followers and inspire each other to advance together. Someone talked about collaboration. Collaboration is having a shared vision where we work together. Transformational leadership is me transforming others, my followers, so that we can advance together. And collaboration is a key part because we're doing it together. We're collaborating, which means we've established trust. Collaboration really requires us building trust. If people feel they can trust a leader who can stimulate a sense of loyalty and respect, they will go beyond what was originally expected of and do it so happily. That's why I believe in transformational leadership, not transactional leadership. Transactional is we're just doing it over and over and over. But transformation is I'm helping someone to transform their lives. And in transforming their lives, we're transforming together. Next slide, please. Influencing others, another aspect. You must always present an honest, caring, dedicated attitude to inspire others. To inspire people, you must believe you're open to their suggestions and believe they have been heard. Everyone wants to be heard. I've learned the 80-20 rule, which is I'm listening 80% of the time and I'm listening 80% and speaking 20%. I'm listening 80% and speaking 20%. Even in leadership, we can come in and dominate and not understand how we influence others' perspectives. Even if their perspective is not right, it's about listening to what they're not saying. That is the power of listening. Simply listen to others makes them feel empowered that actually you're hearing them, not telling them what they're doing wrong, not telling them what they should think about, not telling them what's not going to work, not telling them about what you don't agree with, but actually listening to they so they can feel empowered. And empowerment is key. Everyone wants to feel empowered. Everyone wants to feel that. And I think even when we talk about treatment, it's really about being empowered. It's really about feeling like I am taking my life back again, not a system, not, a treatment model. And I'm not against treatment. I'm not saying we don't do treatment. I'm not saying we don't do mental health. I'm not saying we don't have the different medications, but it's really about how do we empower people to take their lives back? And that's really about how do we influence others' perspectives. Next slide, please. We have to think outside the box. And what I mean by that is that a paradigm is an established model or structure. Now, many of us on here came from culture that shaped us and created a different structure, a different mindset of how we navigate life. We have to start thinking outside the box. I'm a disruptor. I always think outside the box because my life was not in a box. My life was always morphing, and I was always going through crisis and trauma and pain and losses and death. So I always had to shift the paradigm. Sometimes they work quite well, but often they are inadequate or even counterproductive. Sometimes it is necessary to think outside the box and break the paradigm. I'll give you an example. At Green Hill School, we had a lot of young men that were fathers. And I said, why don't we create a fatherhood class? And they were like, oh, well, we don't think they want that. Once again, that's thinking outside the box. And you know how many of those young men loved that class? Because for themselves, they did not have fathers. So they were able to actually get the skills and gain the skills of even how to co-parent, how to communicate effectively with, which I even changed the language of baby mamas. I was like, no, that is the mother of your child, right? So we have to start thinking outside the box and not stand in the box. We can't do what everybody else is doing. Think different. As a leader, always think about innovation. These young folks and people who have been in treatment for so long, their lives have evolved. And we have to get to the innovative part of what's in them. And also for yourself. Now, thinking outside the box, sometimes, I won't say sometimes, it's always uncomfortable because you're in the room and you're going to speak something that's not the common thing. That's not what everybody else is thinking. That's thinking outside the box. Someone told me that if you are coming into a room and people are excited to see you, that's a problem. If you're coming into a room and people are frustrated that you're in the room, that's a good problem because that means you're coming to disrupt things because you're thinking outside the box. Understanding your leadership and understanding your own identity, even today with Evelyn doing this was out of the box thinking. I want to do something out of the box that's different to take us out of these boxes that we always live in. Next slide, please. Oh, go back to the slide. I'm sorry. I wanted to identify these models here really quick. Please note these models because we have to, when we're thinking outside the boxes, we have to think about our program models, right? We have to think about the resource networks that we have. We have to think about the program partnerships. And the last one is the relationships. Relationships are key. And sometimes when you're thinking out the box, you're going and building other relationships that challenge you. But the middle part is really about the breakthrough potential. It's all about breakthrough. What is my breakthrough potential when I really think outside the box in these 4 areas? Next slide, please. This is called the 3 arts of persuasion. The first one is ethos, which is our credibility. What does our credibility look like? What does our credibility look like? In other words, how do we persuade people by using our character? Character is everything. Character is what we model. So it's really our credibility. What am I saying that doesn't line up with the character? because character is a brand, and it's really about what brand am I representing. If you're respectful and honest, people will be more likely to follow you because of your character. Okay. Your character convinces the followers that you're someone who is worth listening to for advice because you're modeling the same character that you want them to be. I remember a lot of times when I would spend time with young folks, whether it be in a school, in an institution, I always wanted to model good character, whether that be what is it like being a husband, being a father, being a leader. They would also even see me how I model good character, even with the staff that they had issues with. So really, how do we model good character? The next one is our emotional. The emotional part persuades people by appealing to their emotions. How are we really dealing with our own emotions? I call it emotional intelligence. All of us have triggers. So I have to keep my own emotions intact. It allows you to tie into the emotional trigger that captures a person's attention and enlists their support. Now, it can easily be abused, leading to the loss of ethos, which is credibility. Really, as leaders, we have to really understand our own emotions. What are the things that triggers us? What are the things that bothers us? When you come into a room and you're bothered by something someone else is doing, you may want to examine your own heart and say, wait a minute, why am I bothered by that? Is that is something that I'm bothered by? I don't like how this kid came in. I don't like this mother. I don't like this. We can all come into a room and see a shirt, a color, a pair of shoes, a hairstyle, and automatically get emotionally triggered. Emotions are real, and we have to know our own emotions. And the last one is the logical part, right? Which means persuading by appealing to a person's intellect. And I like using the word intellectual property, which involves the intangible creations of the human's intellects, which is the human capital. How do we really define and really narrow down the three arts of persuasion? Because everyone wants to be persuaded. However, you need these three things. You need to understand your character, you need to understand your emotional part, and you need to understand the logical part. Next slide, please. The next one is talking about creating an impact. Everyone talks about collective impact, but what is our impact? Impact is created by a number of intangible factors. You must have a confident bearing tempered by a kindly manner. Kindly manner. We have to be kind. It has to be tempered. The second one is we have to have a strong sense of justice tempered by mercy. A strong sense of justice tempered by mercy. All of us were given mercy, and all of us have been given justice. There are many of us on here have done some stuff that we didn't get caught doing. Many of us have gotten opportunities that we probably was not supposed to have. So we also have to know that creating impact means that we have to do to others as we want to be done for ourselves. And the last one is a strong intellect tempered by the willingness to learn. We have to be lifelong learners, not knowers. When we're working with youth, when we're working with adults, when we're working with parents, when we're working with individuals, we have to continue to be lifelong learners, because as leaders, we're continue to evolve, we're continue to grow, and we're continue to learn things about ourselves so that we can continue to create the impacts, which is the outcomes of transforming other lives around us. I think that's our last slide. I wanted to make sure I wanted to leave some time for some question and answers. I didn't want to bottle down with too much presentation. Hopefully at this time we can have some dialogue and some real Q&A, and we'll answer some questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Can we give Dr. Guiden a virtual hand applause, please? Thank you. Yeah, that was amazing. And I know that that was a lot to cover with our short amount of time. So I'm just going to ask a question to kind of get us going, if that's okay, Dr. Guiden. So yes, you have been a leader in community nationally for a very long time. And so I'm going to kind of move us towards some of the work with young people. You mentioned you've spent a lot of time there. You know, with the young people that were actually in the news clip. So I would just like to know, how do you take the presentation, the information, the knowledge you just shared, and how do you dive deeper with these young people who are the most vulnerable, who sometimes, again, I have to share real quick that when I started this youth committee within Green Hill School under the governor's board, I remember staff saying to me clearly, why would you have these gang members, these thugs on a governor's board? Do you not understand the crimes they committed? And I was like, well, you're talking to an individual who also committed similar crimes. So, and I walked away. Because, you know, it's like, it's so true. It's like they, staff, you know, unfortunately, sometimes we get caught up in the system that we don't see these young people as leaders. So I know I said a whole lot, but how do you take your knowledge of what you just presented and incorporate that into working with young people?
You know, for me, it was really the biggest thing was how did I take what I talked about today? I had to put it into practice with the young men. And I had to actually become a practitioner with it. First of all, I had to model it with my own family first. What was my influence like with my family, my wife, my kids, my mother, my father? So I think that was the first thing was actually applying it to my personal life and those around me first. The greatest relationships are those around us. So I had to do that first. That was the first thing. And then as I was able to start applying these, my leadership and my influence to those around me, it became a great practice with others. So when I went into the institutions or the schools with the young men, they would ask me questions. So, hey, Coach Lou, so what's your influence like with your wife? What was your influence like this week? And we would have to have those real conversations, right? You know, I'll be honest, man, I got triggered this week because my wife said this, and I probably shouldn't have said that. So it was really practicing it with the people around me, having awareness, and then also my measurement was the time I spent with them, and was really how I was able to see it transforming their lives. So I think that's kind of how I did it. Someone just put in there, yep, authentically. I had to be authentic. I had to be transparent at all times. And the biggest thing, how I was able to practice was that I had to first have responsibility, number one, and accountability. I had to have heavy responsibility and heavy accountability. People who held me responsible and people who held me accountable. That's another part of what I had to do to put this into practice.
That's very beautiful. Thank you for that. Well, I'm going to open up the floor to our wonderful participants. Feel free to raise your hands or put questions in the chat, and we'll get to those as well. But please, please ask our wonderful presenter some questions today.
Someone put in a chat about male leadership. Thank you for saying that, because I think that was the biggest impact that I wanted to have, that these young men can see a male representing all aspects of life. Marriage, my son is at Morehouse, my daughter's at Spelman, my other son is at Texas Southern University. My son is 12 years old. He's in the 6th grade and he's doing high school classes. So the biggest thing I wanted to do was model to them and break the norm of what they say about men. And that was the greatest influence I had with these young men. They would see me every week coming in, and I was consistent. I was always consistent with them. So thank you for putting that in the chat, because I really wanted to break the norm of what they said about males. That was my greatest impact. So thank you for putting that in the chat. I see a few hands up.
Yes, thank you. Is it Tandra? Am I saying your name correctly?
Yes, it is. Thank you. And that was me. I definitely, I always want to bring light to our male presence in leadership, because so often in these spaces we have so many women who are actively, advocating for change and wanting to see things happen and being that change, but we don't often see as much male presence. So definitely appreciate that, your steadfastness in your work. My question for you is, um, what was the hardest challenge in your field that you took home with you, from your leadership role with the youth? What was your hardest challenge that you took home with you, and how did you resolve it?
Wow, that's a good question. The hardest challenge that I had in this work was dealing with my frustrations. I was so frustrated every week. Frustrated, 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 frustrated. Because it was like every week I was almost having to restructure, readjust their minds, get them to think different about life, bring hope again. And it was just frustrating, frustrating, frustrating. And to your question, I would take that frustration home. And it wasn't good. It wasn't healthy. It wasn't healthy. And what I had to start doing was I had to start really recognizing my capacity. I had to start thinking about the capacity. Lewis, you're here to do this with these young men. And what I started doing was building community partners, where in the community, I would find other partners where I wouldn't have to be frustrated by myself. And I started collaborating with other partners so I would not be in my own silos. Because a lot of my frustration was I was in my own silos and trying to do it by myself. So that helped me. And I began to shift that. I started going home more happier, more relaxed, because I started building partnerships to support the young folks as well.
Thank you so much for that. That was a exceptional answer to, to show that you don't have to be the expert at everything, but be an expert in getting the answer. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. All right, Kathy.
Good afternoon. I just want to say that this is extremely timely for me because just this week, well, let me back up. I work in a forensic hospital, and the patients that come here come to us because they have committed crimes, they have a mental illness and dual diagnosis. So many of our people are on a cycle of being in and out of facilities. These are all adults. So they've been in and out of facilities, some since they were the age of 14 or even younger. So I've noticed that many of our patients have stopped seeing themselves as people because the facilities that they have been in and out of stop seeing them as people. And so I run a wellness and recovery group, and I just had this idea this week about creating this thing called Pearls of Wisdom. Some of my patients say some of the most profound things, and it's based on their life and on their experience. And an example of one of the things a patient said that just blew my mind, and the whole room was silent. I asked what the definition of hope was. And this young lady said, it is the endless desire to overcome negativity. That was just to me, that was the most profound interpretation of what hope was for her. And so I was like, some other people have to hear this. So I couldn't come up with a unique name, but I came up with a Pearls of Wisdom box. So every time a patient says something in group, it goes up on the whiteboard. And my plan is to take that information, put it together, and present it when I do staff education, because I want everyone to see the patients as people that had hopes and dreams, people with potential still, regardless of what their background is or what their current situation is, and get them to understand that these are not just people with a label, people who are part of the justice system, but these are individuals with potential, with hopes and dreams, and creating the impact. Those three things have really encouraged me, because my question was, how do I find a way? How do I find a way? What's the hook that I can show other people what I see in my patients? And it seems the further removed an individual is from dealing with a patient, the not in all cases, but the less they see documentation, they see medical history, they see psychiatric history, but they don't see that person who used to sing or played the piano or who is brilliant at math. They don't see those qualities. And I wanted to try to bring out those qualities and educate people, because they need to be seen as people, but not a label, not a schizophrenic, not a bipolar, somebody with bipolar. This is a person who has a life, potential, dreams, hope. So thank you very much for this. I'm ready to go do this right now.
Thank you for sharing that, because I would do the same thing when I would go into a school or wherever, and they say, "Oh, I want to tell you about a kid." I said, "Nope, I don't want to hear all that. I don't want to hear all that derogatory, what you read in the charts. I want to get to know the gift and the passion in this individual." And they will tell you if you create the right space. And what you just described, you created a space for them to speak what they desire to birth. So that's an example of helping people to birth something different. Because I believe pain, no, I ain't gonna say I believe, we know pain brings a purpose. We just have to help them repurpose it. And here's the deal. Now they can gain a profit. So I would say, even what I've done with young folks is, when I come into a space, I say, "Hey, what do y'all want to call this?" I will let them come up with a brand. And anytime that brand starts moving, I would say, "No, they came up with this." So if there's any intellectual capital, anything coming out of this, it needs to go to these young folks and go to the community. So those are examples of what we do. That's out of the box, and that's getting their voices back. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you, Kathy. All right, Susan.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Lewis and Evelyn, for this beautiful presentation and allowing us to speak as well. I pretty much want to go back with Dr. Lewis stating that, about being raised, in an unfortunate, and then doing the best that we can, because I come from that, being a single parent, and my peers around me, high school, I was just out of high school. I graduated, and then I thought, okay, what's to become of this? Yeah. And today, just speed it up. Today, my daughter, she's, awesome. I just had the one daughter. Awesome. She has her LCSW. I mean, she's got, had the BA, master's and such. And I, guided her through the ways, with, okay, you're branded, you're a single parent, the father's gone, da 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 da. So I thought to myself, as being a young parent, you know what, I'm going to make this change. And they're going to look back on me and say, hey, you did it. And that's me implementing to my job here at Department of Rehabilitation, to where, they'll come in, and I already feel like I am the counselor before they hit the counselor. Because when they walk in, whether it be a single parent, single father, either or, I get them straight out of jail. I've got Coalition next door to me. I've got the jail right, hop, skip, and a jump. So it's, oh, I got this. Oh, I can't do this. And I said, you know what? let me hand you this application. Let's speak about good things. The past is the past. You know, we're here today. You know, you making this choice to apply for services. That's number one. And let's talk about greatness. Let's talk about moving forward. And they look at me like, are you going to be my counselor? I'm all, you know what? I'm not your counselor, but I could be any questions that you have. If I can't answer them, you know, I'll steer you to the right direction. I go, but I have everything to, because our name is Department of Rehabilitation. I get calls from, uh, you know, I'm an alcoholic, da, 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 da. I go, okay, well, this is not the place, but I do have the number and services connection for you, or, you know, whether it be physical therapy, it's like anything above whatever rehabilitation, you know, in relates to that word. Um, you know, I'm feel so good to be that person to you know, just to assist and guide and hear, because I'm a great listener, you know, and I only want to hear the positive, and I hear that in you, doctor, that you know, like, okay, yeah, it's okay. You want to share that, but let me just put a pause on that. It's a new day. You know, amen to that. It's a new day. Let's move forward. And I just thank you guys, the whole panel, everyone that, you know, it just speaks about greatness that, you know, that's us. I guess I was a born, I don't guess, now I know I was born to be a leader. And thank you so much. I appreciate this. And everyone have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan, for sharing. We appreciate you. All right, Luna.
Hello, everybody. I just want to start out by saying thank you very much, Dr. Lewis, for your vulnerability. And it can be sometimes so difficult, especially in front of, you know, just a lot of people to share those kinds of experiences. So I just want to start out with that. So I am a certified peer support specialist, meaning I have struggled to navigate the system and I identify as having experienced or currently experiencing a mental illness, and I've reached a point of stability. So whenever I got my position, it was described as, you know, being on the side of the table with the consumer versus being on the other side of the table where, you know, people are telling the consumer what they should do. And my position is to help them identify what they can do for themselves. So I also want to thank you as a doctor for, it sounds like, being one of those people to be on the side of the table where you're helping the individual who is struggling and not trying to tell them what they should be doing, but how can you help yourself? That is beautiful. But my question is, so you shared some of your experiences and how you've dealt with some loss and struggles. And when you're working with these individuals, I imagine, you know, you find some common themes, such as, you know, a lot of these people, they have experienced some of the same things, and that has led them down to these paths. You know, it's not that they're a bad person, it's that they've experienced traumatic things and it has led them down different routes of life, because, you know, we're all different, so we all handle things in different ways. How did you work with these individuals and be able to be empathetic, but to separate yourself enough to be able to walk away and be able to cope with these things? Because sometimes that's something I struggle with. Whenever I identify with somebody else going through something, like sometimes my heart just aches for them. So how do you temper both of those things, being able to stay within the boundaries of what you're trying to do, but also be able to feel, be able to walk away from that?
You know, that's a great question. It aligns with PAC, which is it peers and clinicians together, right? Is that what it is, Evelyn? I told Evelyn last week, I said, Evelyn, you know, I wrote a curriculum called PACT, P-A-C-T, and we started laughing. But to your question, what I did was I created a curriculum because I wanted them to also go through their own journey, right? And for me, facilitating with them, having a conversation with them, we did the work together. So as I would sit and hear their stories and I've shared my story, we would work together. And PAC stands for Perceptions, Action, Choice, Time. It kept me centered because it always left them with something for them to continue to go through their journey and process. The biggest thing I had to learn was that I couldn't carry them home with me. I couldn't. I couldn't carry them home with me. I had to, release things. When I would leave, I would always go do a decompressor. I would, maybe go somewhere, sit, and just kind of talk it out, deal with things. Because you're right. When we're coming into these spaces, we're opening ourselves up, which means we're vulnerable too. And we have to be careful that when we're leaving the spaces, that we're whole and we're leaving them whole. One of the things I would say is that I don't never leave them open. I always make sure I close it up with something positive, something good. We don't absorb all the energy out the room and then just leave it in there. Even I tell a lot of facilitators, when you're facilitating a group with young folks, always remember how to close it out, because you don't want them to go to the next class or the next whatever they're going and they filter that out. So to your point, it's just really making sure that when we open things up, we close it. I would always open it up, close it with something good. We do a check-in, we do a check-out, and I always had to center it in that. So yes, I had to do it that way, and it kept me healthy and it kept them healthy. And no youth ever went and said that I disrupted anything, was causing a riot, causing frustration, causing them to see their parents different, seeing people different. I always made sure I left with a positive perspective whenever we finished the conversation out. So thank you for that question.
Thank you very much for your beautiful answer. I really appreciate your insight.
Yes, thank you all. Well, here's the time where we need to wrap up, because we do have a closing question for you all. But Dr. Guiden, I appreciate you so much, always, and your work that you have done. Thank you again for being here and sharing your wisdom and knowledge. And we will share, or if you want to share your contact information in the chat, I'm sure everyone would love that. Awesome. So feel free to raise your hand and come off mute, or in the chat box. We're going to close out with a question, because we're all about action, right? So what is one thing you will do to incorporate leadership into treatment? You can share one or two, or however many you would like. One thing you will do to incorporate leadership into treatment. I see listening more than talking. Beautiful. Focus on the positive strengths, positivity. Collaborate, network, model desired behaviors, operate with open listening, not being afraid to initiate action. Beautiful. Reflect more, disrupt your role, and think outside the box. Love it. That's how we make change. We're collaborating. Ooh, confident being tempered by kindness. Look at that, Jim. Awesome. These are so great. There is his contact information and website. Check it out. All right. Well, thank you all for sharing. We appreciate your work as you are all in the field. We know that you do so much for our youth and families. So thank you on behalf of NTTAC. And again, thank you for joining us. You will receive this webinar as well as a copy of the presentation. So feel free to watch again or share. And there is a survey in the chat. Thank you, Bridget. Please complete that so we know what you would like to see, what we could do better. And also, there is a link to our 2024 NTTAC Summit. Here we go. Yes, we would love to have you. It's free. It is happening next month, May 14th through the 16th. We're going to have dynamic keynotes along with speakers. So please come and share Again, it's a free opportunity. We're going to have really cool networking lounges so you all can get to know one another and exchange information.
And Miss Evelyn Clark is not saying that she will be one of the keynote panelists, the closing keynote on May 16th. So if you want to hear more from Evelyn Clark, please register and join.
Oh, thank you, Bridget. All right, so again, stay connected. Please access our website. It is newly updated. You'll love it. Here are our socials. And again, it's all free to you. We do provide one-on-one technical assistance as well. All right. Well, thank you all again. We can stay on for a few minutes since we do have 5. So if you have any closing remarks, maybe one more question, and then we'll get going.
All right, I'm jumping off. I got my young men coming in.
Oh, he's got to go. So we'll end.
Oh no, you guys can go with questions. They're just gonna come in. You guys can ask questions. They're just gonna
Okay,
come in and sit down. Go ahead.
got it.
They're not gonna be noisy.
Yeah, we have a few minutes, so if you got to go, that's okay.
Yeah, we got a few minutes.
Yeah, you can chit chat. Ooh, we already have it already registered for the summit. Yay! Awesome.